Who are the X-Men? The X-Men first debuted in X-Men Volume 1, 1963, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Unlike other heroes who gain powers through freak accidents, the X-Men were just born different. Actual demons, stop playing. They are considered mutants whose individual powers emerged at puberty due to the X gene. Led by Professor Charles Xavier, the X-Men were formed to protect the world that fears and hates them, fighting not just supervillains but prejudice, racism, and genocide. The X-Men are not just heroes. They're a metaphor for civil rights, marginalized identities, and what it means to be other. And you're probably wondering what makes them different. First, they fight for people who hate them. While the Avengers are loved and celebrated, the X-Men fight against hate, fear, and societal rejection. They're seen as dangerous for just existing. Despite this, they protect humanity anyway. And they represent real-world struggles. Mutants have been allegories for racism, which is reflected in Xavier vs. Magneto, LGBTQ+ identity, and the refugee crisis and genocide. And if you want to take a look, I recommend Genosha, House of M, and M-Day. And these are the key arcs that define the X-Men. In God Loves, Man Kills 1982, it is about a brutally honest human story where the villain is not a superpowered being, but a televangelist spreading hatred against mutants. Professor X is targeted, children are murdered for being mutants. The message, hate is powerful and dangerously human. Next, the Dark Phoenix Saga, 1980. This is where Jean Grey becomes a godlike, being corrupted by power. But the team tries to save her rather than destroy her. This arc explores addiction, identity, and sacrifice. Next, Days of the Future Past, 1981. A dystopian timeline where mutants are hunted to extinction by Centennials. A warning about what happens when fear is allowed to become the law. And in House of X, Powers of X, 2019, John Hickman redefines mutant kind, forming Krakoa, a sovereign mutant nation. Themes of unity, rebirth, and control of destiny. Mutants no longer beg to belong, they demand their future. And now let's go into the key power players who are considered the X-Men, one by one. First, we have Professor Charles Xavier, aka the Dreamer. His first appearance is in X-Men Volume 1, 1963. His powers, he's an Omega-level telepath. Founder of the X-Men, advocate for peaceful coexistence between humans and mutants. Professor X is often seen as the Martin Luther King Jr. analog in mutant history, promoting peaceful resistance and understanding. Despite his powerful mind, he's often conflicted, having made morally great choices to preserve mutant kind, like secretly erasing memories or building weapons like Cerebro. In X-Men Deadly Genesis, reveals Chard hid a team's death from the X-Men. And boy, was this crazy. In House of X, Charles creates Krakoa and embraces mutant sovereignty, no longer begging for acceptance. Next, we have Magneto, the radical survivor. Real name Max Eisenhardt / Eric Leshner, and his powers is the mastery over magnetism. His first appearance is in X-Men Volume 1, 1963. As a Holocaust survivor, Magneto represents the trauma of oppression. He doesn't want peace. He wants mutant dominance, believing coexistence is just a fantasy. He becomes more and more complex, even joining the X-Men when it serves the mutant cause. In X-Men Volume 150, it reveals his Holocaust backstory. And in Magneto Testament, it is his raw and realistic origin during World War II. In House of X, he joins Xavier to build Krakoa, and never again isn't just a slogan for him, but it is his mission. Now we have Cyclops, who is the reluctant leader turned rebel. Real name Scott Summers, whose power is Optic Blast. Cyclops started as Xavier's golden boy, but grew disillusioned with the world. After Jean's death and Xavier's lies, he became a hardened leader, making controversial choices, truly controversial, including forming X-Force and opposing the Avengers during Avengers vs. X-Men. Still, he always believed mutants deserved the future. In the arc Schism, he splits with Wolverine over how to lead Avengers vs. X-Men, taking the Phoenix Force to defend mutants, and in House of X, leads Krakoa's military missions with ruthless clarity. And the girl we all love, Jean Grey, the Heart and the Phoenix. Her powers include telepathy, telekinesis, and the host of the Phoenix Force. Jean represents compassion, growth, and power. Her journey from Marvel Girl to Phoenix to Dark Phoenix is a metaphor for feminine power, emotion, and the fear of losing control. She has died and returned multiple times, each time rediscovering who she is. not just a weapon, but as a person. And in the Dark Phoenix saga, this is her most famous story, where power corrupts. And in Phoenix Resurrection, she returns to life with renewal emotional strength. And in House of X, she co-runs Krakoa's mutant government with grace and focus. Now let's talk about the big dog. Wolverine, the weapon who found a soul. Real name James Logan Howlett. He has the powers of regeneration, heightened senses, and adamantium claws. And when I say this dude can die, he really can die. And his first appearance was in The Incredible Hulk Volume 180 to 181, 1974. Wolverine is rage, trauma, and loyalty personified. Engineered to be a killer by the Weapon X program, he struggles constantly to contain his feral instincts and find peace. Despite his brutal past, he's often the moral compass of the X-Men. In the arc Old Man Logan, we see a dark future where he gives up on hope. In Weapon X, it is his origin of his transformation into a weapon. And in Wolverine and the X-Men, he becomes a headmaster, showing his absolute growth, where he contains himself from rage, trauma, and all the emotional bondage he once had. Next, let's talk about the beautiful Storm, the goddess and the leader. Real name Aurora Munro, and has the powers of weather manipulation. Her first appearance is in Giant Size X-Men Volume 1, 1975. Born of Kenyan royalty, worshipped as a goddess, Storm is one of the most respected Marvel heroes in her time. A natural leader, she has led the X-Men multiple times and remains a pillar of grace and strength. She balances her fierce independence with immense compassion. And man, boy, when I tell you the Marvel world loves her, we love Storm. Absolutely no buts if about it. If you talk about her recklessly, we will hurt you. Key arcs, Life Death. It explores her power loss and rebirth. In X-Men Worlds Apart, jungles Wakandian politics and X-Men loyalty. And in Sword and Immortal X-Men, she does a great job in leading the Oracle and in uniting ancient mutant tribes. Now let's talk about Nightcrawler, the Demon of Faith. Real name Kurt Wagner, who has the powers of teleportation and agility. With his demonic appearance but deeply spiritual nature, Nightcrawler is the soul of the X-Men. A devout Catholic, he believes in goodness when the world doesn't. He often brings peace to the team through faith, humor, and loyalty. And in Nightcrawler 2004, he explores the search for belonging. Way of X investigates mutant spirituality in Krakoa. And many of you probably know this next person. He is Beast, the mind at war with itself, real name Dr. Henry McCoy. His powers are super strength, agility, and genius intellect. Once a lovable genius, Beast has slowly become one of X-Men's most morally questionable members. Especially during the Krakoa era, his scientific mind is unmatched, but his ego and belief in the ends justify the means has led to his betrayal and secrets. Very similar to Iron Man. Very, very similar. And last but not least, we have Emma Frost, the Ice Queen with the Heart. Her powers include telepathy and diamond form. Her first appearance, Uncanny X-Men Volume 129. Once the White Queen of the Hellfire Club, Emma evolved into one of the X-Men's most complex figures. She's ruthless, manipulative, and elitist, but deeply protective of the mutant kind, especially young mutants. Her sharp tongue hides a fierce sense of justice. A truly beautifully written character, one may say. And together, they create the X-Men, one of the greatest groups in the Marvel Universe. And together, the enemies they face aren't just villains, it's society itself. The Centennials are machines built to wipe out mutants. The Purifiers, Friends of Humanities, are human hate groups. Mr. Sinister, Apocalypse, Nimrod represent genetic manipulation, survival of the fittest, and mechanized future of oppression. And even the government often registers or hunts them down. Now you probably wonder, why do the X-Men matter more now than ever? In a divided world, the X-Men ask the question, what do you do when the world is afraid of you for simply existing? They answer by choosing hope, choosing humanity, choosing to protect. They're not just another superhero team, they're a symbol of resistance, identity, and the power of choosing family. Mutants, born with powers, hated for them, hunted because of fear, but yet they still rise time and time again. Not for fame, not for power, but to protect the world that rejects them. The X-Men were never just fiction. They were always a reflection. And now it's time the world remembered them.